Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Arnold for Sports, and about to be joined by Ken Weep from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. After a game that made me think of CNC Music Factory. Were you thinking of CNC Music Factory after that game? Not just the band in its entirety, but one specific song came out around the 90s. A song that's went something like things that make you go, Because I watched this game and I thought, I don't know. And you know what I don't know about? I don't know if the 6 games that we saw from the Winnipeg Jets coming out of the break is a sign of a team that has figured things out, that's found its game, that has discovered what a lot of people thought was always there, and they've finally clicked it together, and here they come, and it is undeniable. The Winnipeg Jets are on an ascension and a path to the playoffs. Or are we seeing a little bit of fool's gold out of this? Now, the reason why I asked that question, and before we get to that, I should say, there's a good chance the Winnipeg Jets may just get away with it on this night. You know what I mean? They come out here, their head coach suggests that they laid an egg. And if you take a look at it, what it may cost them at this stage, I'm looking at things here. The LA Kings, they got a single point, so that doesn't necessarily help, but they were up 1-0, blew that lead, lost 2-1 in overtime. The San Jose Sharks lose 6-3 to the Sabres. Their 7th loss in 11 games, I do believe. 8th loss. I think it's their 8th loss in their last 11 games. To keep looking here, I see there's one more here that is of significance. The Mammoth losing 5-0 to the Minnesota Wild. Clearly, the Ducks get another step ahead of the Winnipeg Jets, and head-to-head now they've gained 3 points on the Winnipeg Jets in the last little while. But the games that are still going right now, Edmonton Oilers in the second intermission up 3-2 on the Colorado Avalanche, except, the Avalanche, that's capable. That game is far from over. But the Seattle Kraken had a 2-0 lead, blew that lead in spite of outshooting the Predators 35-18. Yes, the Predators are ahead of the Jets, but of those two teams, I think if you're the Jets, you are pulling for probably the Predators to win in this game. You definitely don't want a tie in overtime in a game like that. But there's a good chance the Jets could get away with it on this night. They lose, and rather than, falling back 7 points of the playoff line, they kind of stay right where they are. You throw it a game, they'll throw it a game. Let's all throw out a game. And it happens like that. But the reason why I'm kind of in the things that make you go, territory is I'm taking a look at what the Winnipeg Jets have done. And it's looked like they've found their speed. They've scored their way back into games. They create these moments where it's like when they need it most, they find it. And so should we establish, or should we suggest there's a pattern? Should we suggest the Winnipeg Jets are what many people thought they were, and it just took them this long to get to it? Or do we take a little bit of a look and say, is there a fool's gold element to this? Now, 2 of the 6 games that they play are against the worst team in the league, a team that in both occasions they needed comeback victories and overtime victories to get past. Okay, so that's 2 of those victories. Another one comes against the Chicago Blackhawks, another somewhat miracle comeback victory, and then victory in overtime against what was the second last place team in the league at that time. That accounts for 3 of those past 6 games that they played there. Well, one of them, the one that made us all believe, forget fool's gold, the Winnipeg Jets are back, was against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Except for one thing, the Tampa Bay Lightning have lost to the Blue Jackets, the Lightning. They beat the Maple Leafs, lost to the Jets, lost to the Wild, lost to the Sabres, lost to the Hurricanes. That's their last stretch of hockey. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games. And if we're taking a look at what else the Winnipeg Jets have done in the meantime, the rest of those games tonight was a handy loss to the Ducks, 4-1. Before that was a Ducks team that didn't look like it started playing in the first 2 periods, then turned it on and came back and beat the Jets. And then that other one against the San Jose Sharks, it's one of only 3 wins the Sharks have in their last 11 games, was that win over the Winnipeg Jets. And it got me thinking, just like CNC Music Factory, things that make you go, because at the beginning of the year, I talked about the Winnipeg Jets And I had suggested that their game didn't really change. It was the same game over and over again. And we used to assign them, there was that California road trip and they had trouble down in California. And then they went up and they beat the Vancouver Canucks. And so many of the analysts were telling you, they're back, baby, here they come. And they weren't back then. They'd run into a lot of trouble. And then they beat the Calgary Flames after that, who were also one of the worst teams in the league. And more evidence that they were back. And then they lost to the Seattle Kraken after that point. And what I surmised at that time was the Winnipeg Jets have this game, and it's just sometimes it's good enough to get over the bar, and sometimes they just can't get over the bar. Tonight looked to me like it's one of two things, folks. It's like their head coach said that the Winnipeg Jets came out and just didn't play anywhere near their capabilities, laid an egg, or the Winnipeg Jets got back to playing a really fast team that exposed them. And maybe that happened. Maybe it was the Anaheim Ducks showing up like they did the first time they played, where they made the Winnipeg Jets look slow. And maybe what we just saw here was a run of these games that lined up for the Winnipeg Jets, where the degree of difficulty they were getting over, and let's be honest, they were just getting over it. Overtime twice against Vancouver, overtime against Chicago, overtime against San Jose, and so on and so forth. We all thought that the Tampa Bay Lightning game was proof that they had moved beyond that. Except when you talk to the Lightning folks before they came into town, they said the Lightning had been playing terrible as of late, and they looked like they've still continued to play terrible going forward. So did the Jets just catch the Lightning in a bad jag? Did the Jets just run into taking 3 games against the 2 bottom teams in the league when they played them? Things that make you go, I don't know. It felt to me like the Jets had taken a little bit of a step forward and that they had maybe left that behind. And what we were seeing was a team that had figured something out and gave you maybe more of a reason to believe. I watched this game here tonight, and I don't necessarily buy into the idea that the Winnipeg Jets just forgot to show up on this night. This is a game that makes Renny go, and it makes me wonder about where we're going here, some of the storylines we've been telling as of late, and is this a schedule-driven fool's gold moment, or is this a step back? Let's see what Ken has to say about it. That, folks, I forgot to tell you, was our Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. You've been in a Toyota this whole time, listening to me wax on. My 2007 Toyota Yaris. You know what I took for a test drive the other day? I went and I took a BZ out. That thing is gorgeous. I still am in line for my 2027 RAV4. But sometimes the guy's got to look around, see what else is out there. But so if you are interested in doing that, head on down to Jim Pattison. Go talk to Mike. I was hanging out with Mike there for almost, 5 hours the other day. So if you want to, get in there and just hang out with Mike like I did, go tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. Anyways, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business to see if Ken believes in fool's gold or if Ken is a miner that is chomping down on some nuggets and they're the real deal. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Ken. Absolutely nails it here. He says, poetic, Renny. Wow, poetic. And I know when I want to wax poetic, there's no more articulate place to go than C&C Music Factory, who came up with such lines as 17 and having a ball, 11th grade, and hey, I knew it all. I mean, it's like honey on the tip of your tongue. Like you've got when you wax poetic about hockey, Ken. Before you do so, just got to point out, I've always loved, I don't know if you call that, it's quite an Argyle pattern, but those jackets there was a 2022 circa era where those were all the fresh new look. And this is one of those things that those looks never went out of style. Those are, you bust that out and you can pull it out and pull it off every single time, as you're doing right now. You look like $1 million, my man. Of course you do, because you went down to Vittorio Rossi and got them to help you look like $1 million. You can do that too, folks. Head on down there, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie the boys, and they will do you up right. Okay, Ken, I don't know how much mining you've done.
This is one of the Frankie originals right here, Sean. This was right out of the Jack Victor special. It was I have to say, I'm more of a suit guy, but Frankie talked me into one set of jacket and pants. And as you said, this is the one that has stood the test of time here.
I got to say, hey, listen, that having that is like a sign of a guy who knows how to dress well. When you can do suit, and then throw in like the slacks and the different jacket. That's the thing. That's a guy who knows how to diversify. And that's what we do, Ken. We add diversity of opinions. I've got an opinion in the beginning of the show on what we see here tonight. I want to see if your opinion branches off from mine.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to have to tell you, a very famous insider just says the Jets can still make the playoffs, as he's pointing out what you just pointed out in the out-of-town scoreboard here. So anyways, I think that this is one of those situations, Sean, I think where a couple of things can be true. I think a game like this is a friendly reminder that the Jets were never going to run the table at 20-0 in the last quarter of the year, even though they had upped their game out of the Olympic break. I think it's fair to say that strength of schedule coming out of the break was in the Jets' favor, even though, as you mentioned, historically, those California trips aren't always very, plentiful for them. And I guess you could argue that, the 2 lost points in overtime weren't, super for them either. But yeah, I mean, this was a raised degree of difficulty. And again, I agree with Scott O'Neill. I think the Jets did lay an egg in this game. They weren't anywhere near their level. I mean, but this is also interesting too, because all of the talk this morning, Sean, at the morning skate with Joel Quenneville, was about this young team that's still learning how to defend and didn't defend particularly well in a 4-0 loss to the St. Louis Blues. But the Ducks were sharp after coming out. That's a good one. Peg City Scott. Waiters isn't an insider, Ken. The text was not from Waiters, Scott. So, but that is a solid pull. I mean, so the Ducks got their wake-up call, the game before at the end of a long homestand. Jets got a wake-up call today, Sean. And again, as Morgan Barron pointed out, there will be times when the team doesn't have its best in this final 20-game span, now 19. But this is what you and I have been talking about, specifically you, Sean, for, let's say, 2 months now. Even if the Jets go on a heater, which they have, you don't really have, let's just put it this way. Jets need to be around 15-5, right? It could be 14-6, but it's going to be potentially 15-5. Sean, this was one of the 5. There's no way around it. Even if they get help on the out-of-town scoreboard, they're going to need around 30 points, 28 to 30 points to get that spot. Might even be higher. So all that means is that, yes, this was a game. And, and it's so funny. Joel Quenneville said, I don't know how many mulligans you get in a season, but that was one of them, pointing to the last game they played. Well, Scott O'Neill's probably going to say the exact same thing tomorrow, Sean, after a noon practice where the Jets are holding their team picture. That's one you crumple in the garbage, but you have to learn from it, as Adam Lowry pointed out. You can't have an effort like that where you're not skating, where you're not generating. Sean, we sung the praises of the top players in the last game. Jets' top players were nowhere to be found in this game, Sean. Mark Scheifele on for 3 goals against. Yes, one of them is an empty netter. Same for Kyle Connor. Same for Gabe Vilardi. 0 shots on goal for Connor. 0 shots on goal for Scheifele. 2 shot attempts. Vilardi, 1 shot attempt, 2 giveaways. Got knocked off the top line after that line gave up 2 goals in a span of 14 seconds to essentially the third and fourth lines of the Ducks. So again, that line has carried the Jets, but tonight they did not carry the Jets. They had a tough go. They were not able to generate much offensively, and they did what people who are constantly shouting from the rooftops constantly say. They got outscored 2-0. in the game. So again, you're not going to carry the team every night, but that was a tough go for the Jets' top players. They are allowed a mulligan also, but in that kind of a game, they needed other people to step up. Morgan Barron was able to do so, but power play nowhere to be found. Too many Jets, too many passengers. And again, Sean, as you've been pointing out, Jets can't afford to have passengers. They can't afford to lay eggs down the stretch. Otherwise, they're going to continue to be outside the playoff line and looking in.
Well, the it's just the degree of difficulty of the task at hand is just too great, right? Like I did a quick look at this, and you're basically saying you think that the Winnipeg Jets are going to need 92 points to make it. And you know what? That's probably a pretty good number. It's down from where it was last year. But if you're right about that, what it means is there are 19 games left and you can afford 5 more losses. Okay. So if we take a look at this and we run it quickly and take a look at what the Jets' task at hand is when it comes to not losing 5 more games, it means you kind of have to run at the table against teams like the Rangers and the Blues and the Predators and teams like that. But you have to find a way not to lose to the Avalanche, who they play twice, the Golden Knights, the Avalanche, who they play 3 times. The Blue Jackets, who are looking like one of the hottest teams in the league right now.
Twice against Vegas.
Games. Twice against Vegas. The Dallas Stars. The Golden Knights twice. You had just said that, but even teams like the Mammoth and the Sharks, who are going to be fighting for their playoff lives.
And Seattle,
like I said,
head-to-head.
Seattle, exactly. So that's where they're at right now, is they need to find a way to make sure that, and now maybe this is one of those throwaway games. I mean, after all, the Anaheim Ducks, they are leading the Pacific Division. Maybe, just maybe, if the Jets could push their way up, although they still remain 11 points back at the Utah Mammoth, although Utah has two games in hand. That seems like an unworkable solution to get up to play the Anaheim Ducks. It looks like everyone's chasing a first-round date with the Colorado Avalanche. But hey, you're the Winnipeg Jets, and you go in here the next little while, and you win 2 of 3 against the Colorado Avalanche. Maybe that's where you get over the playoff line. Maybe that's what gives you hope going into a first-round series against the Colorado Avalanche. I'll say it again. And this is the tricky thing, is it's a great story, right? It's a great story, and it's great that, you're seeing a lot of the national media talk about, the Jets have a chance and all this kind of stuff. If the Jets run their way up the flagpole, but hit the chain, or the rope runs out of rope right before the playoff line, I can't see this as anything other than a disaster, Ken. Like an exercise in, it would be the ultimate, what do we call it? Geez, how come I can't think of the term right now? When a team wins a game, and what kind of win is it? When it's like a good feeling win? How am I not remembering this right now? Anyway, it would be the ultimate, like, wow, we did it. We didn't quite do it, but we sure did something there, because what they did was take themselves out of a position where not that long ago. I mean, I was listening to the broadcast. January 8th, they were the last place team in the league, which put them in a really, really interesting position in a draft, a position they hadn't been in a lot of years. To come away and be 15th or 16th overall picking, boy, oh boy, that changes things. I'm going to remember the term in a little while. But Ken, your takeaway, you talked a little bit about the top line in this game. Dig a little bit more into where you see them and where you see their responsibility in a game like this.
Well, Sean, again, they've been playing great. Mark Scheifele named first star of the week for good reason. 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points, 2 game winners. Set up the winner in overtime the other night for Josh Morrissey. But this is a game against a team that leads the Pacific Division, and that line was not a factor in a positive way. And then they were on for 2 goals against before the empty netter. So. To the point where Scott O'Neill, didn't like what he was seeing and put Alex Iafallo back on the line to give them a little bit more defensive conscience, I guess. So, again, I don't think it was from lack of effort, but I think the Ducks did a good job of taking away their time and space. Sean, what do we always talk about? That line is incredibly fast. At times they play with pace. They can score off the rush. They can score down low. But the Ducks have some big defensemen like Jacob Trouba, like Radko Gudas, like Jackson Lacombe, who played 27 minutes and 15 seconds. It was a Josh Morrissey-esque type of game for Lacombe. But, that line just didn't have a lot cooking. I mean, they didn't, the normal chemistry we've been talking about with great frequency wasn't there. Passes were in the skates. I mean, Sean, on one of the first shifts of the game, like 3 or 4 shifts into the game, the Jets should have had a 2-on-1. There was a turnover. I mean, we talked about the looseness of the Ducks game. Gabe Vilardi was going on a 2-on-1, I think, with Kyle Connor, but the puck got kind of stuck in his feet and kind of kicked forward. And instead of having a scoring chance, it turned into a nothing burger. And, the Ducks got the puck back, and instead of making it a dangerous play and maybe making it 1-0, the Jets were left looking for offense. I mean, they barely had any offense going in either of the first 2 periods. Shots on goal considerably, really low, to the point where the fans went absolutely wild in here, Sean, and broke out a shoot the puck chant with, 8 minutes into the third period. It started out as Bronx cheering with shots, just regular routine shots on goal. And then all of a sudden it was, full on go Jets go, and people were back into it. But I mean, it just, again, I have a hard time directing. I'm not out here, jumping on a soapbox saying these guys, what's wrong with these guys? Well, that line has carried them. I mean, they are the most productive line by a long shot. So some nights you're not going to have it. This was one night where that line didn't particularly have it. And then, to rub salt in the wound, they were on for, I'm pretty sure it was both goals in that 14-second span. So, game flow, I mean, the Ducks controlled the game. I mean, this is not a shot, but I mean, at the good folks at Natural Stat Trick, but the high danger chances at even strength were only 12-7 for the Ducks. And that, again, that's not the kind of game that I watched, Sean. And I don't think it's the kind of game that you watched either. Connor Hellebuyck was busy and everything else, but I just don't think that the Jets generated, 7 high danger chances out of their, whatever it was, 14 shots on goal. And either 13. Way, 13. So again, it was not a playoff like effort, Sean. And I think, we saw they've played the clips. I mean, Morgan Barron, was pretty pointed in his intermission interview with Kevin Sawyer, and good on him for saying it. They look like a team that wasn't playing at the level required for what the stakes were at hand. So, I mean, as we've talked about, it may not end up costing them any points in the standings, but to me, Sean, that's kind of a cop-out. I mean, that it's still a blown opportunity because, it's true. It didn't cost them any points, and now the Kings are tied with the Kraken, at least momentarily. But this was a chance for them to go to 3 points. So much like losing those 2 overtime points, you can make the case on either side of the coin. The facts are it was a missed opportunity against a team that had been vulnerable, but at the same time, the Ducks didn't look like a vulnerable team like Tampa was against the Jets. They looked like a team that is trying to win the Pacific Division, and even though they're young and learning, they look like a team that, is right in the thick of it for good reason. And I mean, they're going to have to, there's going to be a push from Vegas. There's going to be a push from Edmonton. But this is a team that is learning how to win right before our eyes, sort of like the Jets coming of age, to be honest, Sean. We talked a little bit about that the last time when the Jets were in Anaheim.
Yeah. To go a little bit with the idea of the potential for fool's gold here, I'm actually doing some crunching numbers here or going over some games, and it's a little interesting when I think about it. That Lightning game was really kind of the thing that made me think, okay, maybe things are changing here. But now that I go look at it, the Lightning game is the one victory that the Winnipeg Jets have over a team above the playoff line going back to... This is a long way back. Keep going. January 15th and the Minnesota Wild. That is the last team other than the Tampa Bay Lightning that the Winnipeg Jets have beat that is above the playoff line. So we're talking about 2 months ago. Now there's a month off in there. So we're talking about more like a month. But it goes back to the point. I really was it was starting to change my mind. My mind has never changed. I still don't think the Winnipeg Jets are making the playoffs. It looks a lot more possible now, but I still don't think that it happens. But I'll say this, it's like this game really, okay, for the conversation, and it always comes back to Winnipeg because of the comment that was made on the Spitting Chicklets podcast about the Winnipeg Jets being frauds. So you see that people love to banty around that term, the Winnipeg Jets are frauds, all this kind of stuff. This is the kind of game that fuels that fire. If someone else is sitting out there and is saying, I don't believe a thing of what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets right now, this is the kind of game that I think is damaging to the Winnipeg Jets as far as making people believe that it's anything other than a blip in the schedule that just happened to fall in the Winnipeg Jets direction. Anyways, it's a moral victory. That's the term I was looking for. We ask those questions all the time. It's a moral victory. The Winnipeg Jets hey, you were last in the league, but you pushed and you made it all the way close to the playoffs, and it's a moral victory. I like this one from T. Will here, though, who says, and this is something I'd popped up before, it's called a Pyrrhic victory, Renny, a victory that comes at so high a cost it wasn't worth winning. This outdoes a moral victory, because this would actually be the complete and total epitome of how to describe what the Winnipeg Jets would do if they climb that ladder and fall just short of the playoffs. So you know what? That means T. Will is our guy who walks away with another prestigious award. What 4 shovels the guy's got, and here he is with the Flame and Comfort hot take of the game, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. You will find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of it for you. I will say this, Ken, right off the bat, after the Winnipeg Jets run into this, they get given the pristine roofing wake-up call by their coach, who goes straight after them. You know what that means. North End Rick, he's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, exterior needs. You can get a hold of him directly at 204-981-6289. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad you did. Ken, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. He's shown a pattern of this. But what do you make of Scott Arniel being like, there's no wiggle room there. There's no, I didn't like it. I can understand it. We got 6 straight games with points, and we had points and all but 2 of the points to take out of those 12 games. And, fine. But I do have to say that the swiftness with which he is willing to put a pin in the heart of any kind of, understanding or soft approach to it is almost shocking to me. Is it shocking to you?
No, I mean, his team had 7 shots on net through 40 minutes of play, Sean. So I think that this is one of and 13 in the game. I mean, there was no urgency from his team. So I actually don't mind the approach here. I mean, you want honesty. Scott's being honest. I mean, this wasn't a game where I don't think you could sugarcoat it and say, missed out on a break here or a break there. They just didn't have it. I mean, and when you don't have it, simplify your game. But I mean, the breakdown. I mean, the third goal that was scored by Killorn, that puck's got to get out, Sean. The Jets have been taking care of the details. Yeah, I mean, we know there have been some nights where offense is hard to come by. This was one of those nights, but you can't compound that by feeding into the transition game of your opponent. And you absolutely need more than 6 shots on net in the third period when you're trying to battle back from a 3-1 deficit, and you get a power play 40 seconds into the period. So I hear where you're coming from. You can't be leaning onto that every time the Jets lose. You can't just say we didn't have it, we laid an egg. But I think this is one of the situations where if the shoe fits kind of scenario, where I think that was the epitome of laying an egg by the Jets. Perfectly good to me.
Yeah. I find it a little okay, I'm rewatching this play as you talked about it. It's a little bit of a tip. This is the kind of play that Alex Killorn keeps that puck in. And if it were the Winnipeg Jets, keeping that puck in and scoring that goal, it would be one of those ones where we give them all the credit in the world for being the team that hustles and treats getting the puck out of their zone like it's, we're defending this line like we're defending a trench in World War II in France or something like that. You know what I mean? Like Alex Killorn really goes out of his way to keep that puck in the zone. And I take a look at it, and I don't know that it's casual. I think the puck is outside the player who tries to kind of chip it over the line. He doesn't get the best wood on the stick. Like, are we doing that thing where we're not giving the other team credit for just being a good team, and sometimes they just make a play?
Sean, I'm not disputing the play. Great job by Killorn. But if a team scores, then gives up 2 goals in 14 seconds, you can't not get that puck out. I mean, play at the blue line's got to get made is how I'm looking at it. I'm not taking away from Killorn. I'm not saying it was a casual play, but that's one where you have to get the puck out by any means necessary. It's bad enough that they gave up 2 goals in 14 seconds after finally getting some life from a goal after a shot by Elias Solomonson and a great tip by Barron to get to the net. Again, it's a 2-minute span. It's too easy to say, well, the Jets fell asleep for 2 minutes and that was curtains. Well, no, they didn't respond to scoring a goal. They didn't respond to giving up a goal or a goal 14 seconds later or another goal 144 later. So to me, again, I'm not Killorn, great play, yes, but that puck's got to get out under any circumstances. I mean, that's how I see it.
It's funny.
You don't agree?
Well, to be honest, okay, so let's use an example from our last show. This wasn't Brock Besser being able to easily achieve the red line and dumping the puck in, and then creating a face-off in the opposition zone and it ending up in the back of your net. Like, this isn't carelessness. This is, to me, 2 guys competing and one guy wins the competition, right? Like this, and beyond that, what I see from it is, like, I guess what I'm so used to last year when we covered the Winnipeg Jets, it was like they scored so many goals because they battled at the opposition's blue line and treated getting that puck out like it was World War III. You know what I mean? And then one of the other things we always gave the Jets credit for last year was when momentum swung, they knew that you can ride that momentum. They went to the bench, and rather than being that team that goes to the bench and is like, okay, finally we tied this up, it's like, no, there's blood in the water. Next line, get out there, and boom, now you've got another goal. No, keep going. That's what made the Jets a great team last year. And I guess in this situation, if I were looking at the Winnipeg Jets and I said, I think that the Winnipeg Jets just gave up in that moment, I don't see that. And you did make the point, like, hey, if there's a lot of people out there who are going to be tempted to look at that and say, yeah, you know what, the Winnipeg Jets, they just had a bad 3 minutes there. And other than that, they could have won that game. It's like, well, sure, if you want to excuse or ignore them getting pummeled for the rest of the game, like, yeah, it all happens in a 3-minute span there. But the reason I don't necessarily feel the same as you do is because if I'm not willing to give Killorn the credit for out-competing the Winnipeg Jet player at the blue line in that moment, and if I'm not able to give the Anaheim Ducks credit for capturing momentum and then riding that momentum to a small little break in the game that wins them the game, then everything that I said about the Winnipeg Jets last year is bluster and bravado and bullshit, to be honest, because we spent so much time talking about the Winnipeg Jets and how good they were at that, and that they won games because they captured momentum, and that they won games because they didn't check out after scoring a goal. They went out and tried to turn it into 2 the next shift and 3 the next shift. So I don't know that I can go in that direction, because then we fall into the trap of being the Winnipeg Jets podcast that always says the Winnipeg Jets win if they do this, they're going to win, because that's not the reality of it. It's 2 teams competing, and maybe just maybe, because they're capable of capitalizing on momentum the way they did, because they're able of competing and out-competing a player in that one important play where he catches it right before it leaves the line, maybe they're just a better team. And that's I guess what I want to kind of leave this conversation with, because that's what we said about the Winnipeg Jets all last year. And to me, that's what I saw here, Ken. I didn't see a lazy play by the Winnipeg Jets. I saw a team that played the Winnipeg Jets right now like the Winnipeg Jets played teams last year and won games off of.
Oh, and don't mistake what I'm saying, Sean. Anaheim's the better team. They swept the season series. It's obvious that they're the better team. That's why I am giving Killorn credit, but I'm just saying it after giving up 2 goals in succession, you got to find a way to get that out, whether it's banging it off the glass or whatever else. I mean, I got no problem with the hustle play by Killorn. In fact, I applaud it. But the point is, the Jets kept the top 2 lines of the Anaheim Ducks off the board and still lost the game 4-1. So that shows you that Anaheim is a better team and they're a deeper team. And even though they're still learning, they're doing a lot of the things the Jets were doing last year. So I think we're saying the same thing. I don't,
Yeah,
we're just disagreeing on the play in question. I mean, that's,
I guess so. The one thing I
again,
would
I think
say,
it's a great play by Killorn. Killorn's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. And this is why they brought him in for when they're actually good. You want Alex Killorn making plays. You want Alex Killorn, taking a turnaround slapper from the boards that Ryan Poehling tips in for the game winner. The third line was excellent again, much like it was in Anaheim like a week and a half ago.
I guess the point that I want to leave this with, and I think we're saying a lot of the same things here, Kenny, but Partisan Paul says Jets can't afford to be flat at this point in the season, and this is the easiest way for me to get my point across. I disagree with this. This to me, do you remember when you do the old mercy fights on the playground where you would like go with your buddy and you would like lock fingers and then it was all about like bending them until they said mercy, right? And then at some point, if the big strong guy like rolls your hands back or knuckles back, or sometimes this was a good move, you'd like bring them down around this way and like turn them up that way. At some point, someone drops to their knees in that mercy fight because they've been overpowered and they give up in that game. I don't know that I saw a flat Winnipeg Jets team. I saw a team that was overwhelmed, overpowered, and their willingness to believe that they could win that game was overwhelmed, just like they did to teams last year. So it's one of these things where it's like, hey, if you're a coach, you have to say that, because you have to say to your team, you still have reason to believe. You didn't win that game because you didn't have your best. I can't let it go into your head that actually you just ran into a good team who played well tonight and they kicked your butt, right? You can't say that as a coach, because then you're putting a limit on what your team can be capable of. But we can talk about reality. And to be honest, if I'm looking at this game, that's the reality that I saw in that game here tonight. The Anaheim Ducks were going to score in that moment, and that was just it, period. And hey, you can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that is what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. I wanted to ask you specifically about the defense and the makeup of the defense. I don't know that I saw it there, and it was Fleury who was in front of the net. I saw some analysis after the game about them getting overpowered in front of the net. I thought it was just one of those ones that got caught in Fleury's skates, that rebound that ends up in the back of the net. But all that said, did you see anything about a young, fast, and, somewhat big Anaheim Ducks team that overwhelmed the new Jets defense core that does not have the size that it had just a few games ago?
Yeah, I'm not sure about overwhelmed, but I mean, I do think it's fair to say that, the Jets, one of the things they talked about this week is how much crisper their breakouts were happening. And that wasn't happening today as often. The pucks weren't getting north for the Jets. They weren't getting, the clean zone exits were probably a lot lower than in the last few games specifically. And again, that's a combination. The Jets were spending more time defending because Anaheim's a faster team. Jets were playing slower, but that was because Anaheim dictated the pace. This is, again, we're saying the same thing, Sean. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of the Jets didn't have their legs, but they couldn't match the speed of the Ducks, and they weren't playing as fast as they did against Tampa. They weren't spending as much time. I mean, Scott O'Neill talked about the Jets maybe setting a record for zone time in their last outing on Saturday. So that wasn't happening. They spent more time defending. And when you spend more time defending, there are going to be more times where you're either coughing up the puck or having trouble, with players in front of the net or not getting the puck out of the zone. So, I mean, no, I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, well, Jets got overwhelmed on the third pairing because Bryson's 5'9" instead of 6'7". I mean, that's not what I saw. But again, we also know the reality is that the Jets D-corps is a bit undersized with the players that are out of the lineup. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, it hadn't cost them in the first 6 games, but I mean, I do think that the Jets defense was more under pressure today. Whether that's the top pairing of DeMello and Morrissey or the third pairing of Fleury and Bryson and in the middle with Samberg and Solomonson. I mean, it was just one of the games where the puck was kind of, bouncing around a little bit. The passes weren't as crisp and, but again, they didn't have as much time to have those zone exits, Sean, right? And that's the thing when you're getting pressured, and you know this better than I do because you played more defense, when you're looking over your shoulder because the other team is coming, well, yeah, your chances of making a crisper play are not as high.
This was an interesting point. Sorry, I got derailed by this just by
okay.
The infamous Russell Peters, who says Tampa had many guys in Italy. Are they out of gas because of that? Maybe there's something potentially to this. Their head coach just lost his father. I do think there's something to the heartache that comes with the loss of the Olympic gold medal. And talking with Josh Morrissey and hearing about Josh Morrissey, you also have to kind of realize that, hey, Josh Morrissey is like feeling bummed out because he didn't get into any of those games. But the Tampa Bay Lightning also have Cirelli and Point, who didn't even get overseas along with the team and sat back. You have to think of those guys and their mindset of, man, I sure could have helped that team the way that they are. So maybe there's something to it there. But the point I was going to make when you were kind of finishing up there was the idea, and I was going to ask about this, just the idea, Ken, of going from playing a Vancouver Canucks team who have lost, 8 of their last 9 games, right? And the Jets clearly dominated them. And again, it was nice in that moment to believe as the Winnipeg Jets were pushing and trying to get back, which they remained doing, so trying to get back into the playoff race. But here they are dominating the last place team in the league. Do you think that there was anything of like, I do believe that you can have, I've said this over and over again, pacing I think is important in the NHL. And I think sometimes you can get into a little bit of a pacing situation going on where they went out and their pacing against the Vancouver Canucks was this dominant, on our toes, roll on these guys, roll on these guys, roll on these guys. And then all of a sudden you played a team where, let's be honest, that's not going to happen because the Anaheim Ducks aren't the Vancouver Canucks. The Anaheim Ducks are a team leading their division, not the worst team in the NHL, who can't seem to string together 2 wins for the life of them, right? So I think someone had said to me that the Canucks have 3 victories in 2026, 3 or 4 victories. It's crazy, right? So do you think there's anything to the Winnipeg Jets coming off a game against the Vancouver Canucks and then just all of a sudden, wow, that's not happening? They may have got a little lost in that.
Yeah, I don't sort of view it that way, Sean. I think the Jets knew what they were in for. Basically because what we know is that the Ducks skated the Jets into the ground in the November game. The Jets were much better in kind of more of a low event game a week and a half ago in Anaheim. And then today they just weren't able to dictate the pace at all. I mean, Anaheim dictated pretty much the entire terms of the game. So again, much like the Jets know that there's basically no room for error when you're playing Dallas, when you're playing Colorado. I don't think they had any trouble getting up for the game. I just don't think that they were able to match the maybe the intensity. I mean, Sean, we know this from, you did the game. I mean, I think the Canucks were actually more physical than Anaheim was in the game today on Saturday. I think Vancouver played the Jets incredibly hard, at least until the third period when it became a real kind of one-sided, skate them into the ground, high flips, just like the Chicago game. But I thought the effort level by Vancouver was pretty high in that game.
Would the suggestion be, though, that the Jets would have an easier time absorbing physicality, but a harder time absorbing speed?
I guess. I just don't think that it was necessarily the physicality that led to the goals in this game. I mean,
no. That's my point. Is you're saying you thought that the Vancouver Canucks were the more physical of the 2 teams
in the first 2 periods.
So I agree with that. And what I'm saying is I actually think guys like Mark Scheifele, guys like Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi, especially Alex Iafallo, I can go up and down that lineup, are guys who actually handle the physicality of it well. The challenge of the Vancouver Canucks, at, like you had said, was the physicality in that game, which the Jets handled well, and in the meantime rolled all over them for the entirety of the game. The challenge on this night wasn't necessarily the physicality; it was trying to handle the speed. And I guess that, so. Again, I'll re-ask the question: are the Jets more capable of handling a heavy attack than they are a speed attack?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's fair. I mean, I don't think that Anaheim skated the Jets into the ground today, and that they made them look old and slow. But
when there's 33 shots, isn't there just an element of you've got the puck and we can't get it back from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that was more kind of in zone stuff, where it wasn't necessarily the speed. But anyways, I think that just Anaheim executed and played incredibly well. I mean, they dictated the terms. So and just quickly, Nashville has wrapped up. They got an empty netter from Stamkos, 4-2. So
there you
Jets
go.
Will remain 5 points out here.
That's got away with
they caught themselves a break, even though it's a missed opportunity still.
The one thing I would say that is like problematic, and then is one of it's starting to almost potentially. I don't want to speak too soon. It's starting to look like it's Nashville. Sorry, not Nashville. It's starting to look like it's Seattle or bust for the Winnipeg Jets, because what we did see earlier in the year was the Edmonton Oilers kind of take off and find their game, and then they looked like what we all knew about them, and then they came out of the Christmas break and they fell back asleep again. There's 2:27 left, and I may be like burning myself here because it's 4-3 there over the Avalanche, and who knows, the Avalanche could tie it up, send it into overtime, or two quick ones and beat them 5-4 before the bell happens here. But I will say this, a guy who I absolutely, and this is one of the reasons why I trust him, Mark Spector, who covers the Edmonton Oilers, is the first guy who will tell you right off the bat the Edmonton Oilers are playing terrible. I saw some tweets from him tonight about how he has seen from the Edmonton Oilers. It's starting to look like they've gone back and rediscovered the Edmonton Oilers are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When they're low, they are one of the worst teams in the league. When they're high, you've seen what they can do. They've been to the Stanley Cup final the last couple of years. I don't know who was the good guy and who was the bad guy out of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde was the bad guy. So they're becoming, it sounds like, the Dr. Jekyll. And if that's the case, we've seen what they could do. And that would be problematic for the Winnipeg Jets if the Edmonton Oilers start taking off, because what it means is you basically now are in competition, unless you're thinking that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to drop out of this. But I would suggest you're starting to look, with the Mammoth being 11 points up on the Winnipeg Jets, it's Seattle, which means you've got to find a way to get past the Nashville Predators, the San Jose Sharks, the Los Angeles Kings, and the Seattle Kraken in the last 19 games of the season here if you're going to make this happen. Ken, just your thoughts. Let's do another round over of the new guys. Roseanne, Bryce, all those guys. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot. I mean, Roseanne, a little bit more ice time, not a whole lot. 12, 15 shifts, 1 shot, 4 shot attempts, 1 blocked shot. Again, there are flashes there where you see the skating, where you see the offensive creativity. But again, you're airlifting a guy into a situation and playing him with, with 2 veterans who aren't operating at their optimal offensive capabilities. So, that's not to say that the line can't work. I think there are moments where Jonathan Toews is putting Roseanne in good spots with his passing ability. But again, this isn't a natural. It's not. It hasn't been immediate chemistry, is what I would say. And again, I'm not blaming the veterans, and I'm not blaming the kid for adapting to the system. I mean, there's a reason why he has spent the majority of the year in the American Hockey League. He is working to become a full-time player, and I expect him to be a full-time player in the fall, and these last 20 games will help him accomplish that goal. For Bryson, again, steady third pairing guy. He was on for 2 against today with Hayden Fleury. He had 13-18 of ice time, 1 giveaway, 1 block shot, not a whole lot cooking. Brad Lambert, again, same kind of idea. 16 shifts, 11:45, 1 shot attempt. Again, I know some people don't agree. I like him with Morgan Barron and Cole Koepke. I like the speed and the tenacity of Barron and Koepke with the skill of Lambert. I think, Sean, and we talked about this in the preseason because this is what we saw. Brad Lambert is in an interesting spot, Sean, and I know you agree. Brad Lambert knows the only way he's going to gain the trust of his coach is by being responsible defensively. The only way he's going to be a middle six player in the NHL is if he produces offense while earning the trust of his head coach. So right now, I think he's there's some overcorrection happening in terms of trying to make sure all the details are right defensively, but it's also kind of tapping into his creativity and finding a way to get something going offensively. And right now, there hasn't been a lot cooking defensively. And again, I understand chicken and egg and all those things. And people are going to say, well, you're playing him with a couple of fourth liners. What do you expect? Well, Morgan Barron is one of 5 players on the Jets to have double digits in goals. And despite his 2 lengthy goal scoring droughts, has been one of their more consistent offensive players. So I think he is in a good spot playing with Barron. And Koepke's halfway to his 10 goals that he had last year in Boston, even though he had a long stretch of not really producing. So it's a tough spot, and I get it. But again, I don't think it's as simple as saying put Roseanne and Lambert together on a line and you're going to get magic. Now, it could happen down the road, but you're not guaranteed if you put, even if it's Barron, Lambert, and Roseanne, that you're going to have immediate flash because you have more skill on the line. So I think it's an interesting spot, John. Again, we know small sample size, need to see more. But so far, I mean, room for improvement is what I would say, but that's what I would have expected coming out of the first 2 games, basically.
It's a tricky one, and I wanted to point out, you talked about Morgan Barron. Like, there's an example of a guy who just went out and proved it, right? Like, everyone who always say that, you got to carve out a space in the lineup, give that to that guy, let him fail, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you get to do that if you're a team that's entirely fallen apart. And, maybe there's an argument to be had if the Jets have gotten to that, but clearly they still think they can make the playoffs, so they're not conducting themselves how a traditional team falling out of the playoffs would do it. But Morgan Barron is the example of the guy that we've talked about in the Ken, that it's $1 million job. You got to go out and you got to earn it. I wanted to ask you, though, if you have a theory specifically on Brad Lambert coming into the AHL, pulling off, by the way, I think the Edmonton Oilers just closed out the win over the Colorado Avalanche. So that's really the only thing that went wrong on this night for the Winnipeg Jets. For the most part, they got away with it. I wondered if you had any thoughts or theories on Brad Lambert, on what made him such a dynamic scorer in that first season in the AHL, and why he hasn't been able to discover it. What was there a feeling that after that, like, I know last year in talking with some of the people in the Manitoba Moose, that they felt that they'd exposed him too much, that first year he was able, there was a lot of great players on the Moose, so he was able to not be the focus. And then that second year, now he became the focus. The Jets went out and made a whole bunch of moves, brought in good players to make sure that he wouldn't be the focus, and that the other teams couldn't just come in and key on Brad Lambert. But that doesn't seem to have helped either. So what is your take on how he's lost his offense and how he hasn't been able to rediscover it at the AHL level? And do you really think that he's a player who's going to be able to discover it at the NHL before he has to be forced to rediscover it at the AHL level?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So, I mean, I think, Brad, you got to go back even further, Sean. So he comes over, he's playing for the Moose, and then he gets sent back to Seattle Thunderbirds after playing at the World Juniors. Goes back to Seattle, 17 goals, 38 points, 26 games, adds 6 goals, 26 points, 17 games in the playoffs. So he comes back to the Manitoba Moose, sort of like he gets to redo the grade in some ways, even though it was only a small sample, not even a quarter season in the American League. But going to Seattle, winning a Western League championship, going to the Memorial Cup, then coming back to the Moose, where he was dominant and almost a point-a-game player, 21 goals, 55 points. I mean, he was at the top of his game, feeling great, gets the game at the end of the year with Nikita Chibrikov, has an assist in game 82. I think it was against Vancouver. Since that time, offense has not come easily for him. And again, I have not watched Brad enough at the American Hockey League level to say this is what's missing. We've seen, Sean, when I used to go to Penticton for the Young Stars tournament, Young Stars Classic, you could see the older guys, or the guys who had been at that tournament before. You saw Mark Scheifele take it by storm. We saw Connor McDavid take a couple shifts, then get hit by Jake Virtanen, and then get shut down for the tournament. But to me, I don't have a great gauge on this. What I know about Brad is he's an incredibly fast player. He is a coachable player. He is someone that, I think he leans more shooter than passer. Not that he's not a good passer, but I think Brad has sort of got caught in the middle, Sean, for me. And again, I'm not blaming the Jets and I'm not blaming Brad. He's been caught between, am I going to be, what have we been talking about for years since PLD left? Who's going to be the second line center? So Brad comes in, is playing on the wing, then he goes back to center. At the NHL level, now he's back on the wing. I think he's kind of gotten caught in between. What am I going to be doing as an NHLer? Where are my strengths going to be utilized? And, at the same time, I don't have a great answer, and I can't let him off the hook I applaud the fact he's trying to be a more complete player, but Brad's a guy that can't be a 6-goal NHL scorer. He's too talented for that. I don't know if that means he's not getting enough going on the power play or at even strength, but Brad is too skilled to not be producing more, and he's not going to be in the NHL as a checker, Sean. So the simple answer is he has to figure out how to be a responsible player, but be creating offensively, because he's not a physical player and he's not a Selke candidate. So he has to be an offensive player. And I do think he can get it figured out, but I'm not sure if he's going to be, what level of offense he can produce, whether it's for surely a second line role or he has to be a middle 6 player. I mean, that's up to Brad to show, and I'll have a way better answer for you at the year end wrap up, because I want to see more before I make a broad observation.
Well, I'll say this about him. I don't have an answer to that, but the one thing that I will say, because I didn't see a lot of him playing when he was with the Manitoba Moose the year that he lit it up in that first full year of his in the AHL. But I can tell you this as a guy who is like, okay, I'm going to tell you this. When we're watching from the press box, you get to the stage where you know the players on the Jets so well that you don't even need to look at their numbers. You can just see by their posture, by the way that they skate, by the way that they handle the puck. Everyone's got a style. There was a real funny or fun or whatever you want to call it moment there, Ken, where Kevin Stenlund came into Winnipeg and was the same height from the press box, same hair, same long hair, had the same shoulder slump, and moved the same way as Blake Wheeler. And it was really hard to tell the two of them apart, especially because Blake Wheeler didn't have the blazing speed that he had at one point of his career. It was later on at that point. It's funny. It was like a body double. It was like, if we lose Blake Wheeler, you've got like the backup who's right there. But the point of it is like, you get to know players so well that you understand their style. You understand what makes them good players. You understand when they go into the boards to battle for a puck, what they're going to do, and you have the expectation of whether or not they're going to come away with that puck. If it's Gabe Vilardi, he's almost always going to come away with the puck if he can get a stick on it, even if he's reaching the stick 6 feet away from him, right? Those kind of things. With Brad Lambert, I don't know what I don't know what he is, Ken. Like, I don't know what his successful game looks like. With Cole Perfetti, you at least saw enough from him to know that this guy's got to get to the dirty areas more often if he wants to have success. Brad Lambert, I don't know if he scores because he's got a great shot. Clearly, his speed is going to have played some kind of role in it. But what I haven't seen from him, Ken, that you saw from a guy like Nick Ehlers before Nick Ehlers was able to fully figure it out. At least with Nick, you could see he'd get the puck and he'd wind it up and you'd be like, holy smokes, I'm not sure he's going anywhere. But man, is he skating with that puck? And is he ever fast with the puck? That's one thing that I've seen. I don't know that I see Brad Lambert being fast with the puck. It seems to slow him down, at least at the NHL level. But it's just my way of saying he's got a very undefined game. I don't know that he knows what he needs to do to have success at the NHL level, because what I see from him is a guy that looks a little bit lost out there. And I'll say this quickly. When I said at the Olympics, and I understood why they took Kyle Connor off the ice and replaced him with Clayton Keller as that tournament went on, I thought Kyle Connor looked lost in the first 2 games. It led to no shots. He didn't seem to have the puck that often. He just seemed to be like skating around trying to find some open ice and get, he just seemed disconnected. Brad Lambert still seems disconnected to me. So when we get in and we have these conversations and people are like, oh my goodness, Brad Lambert is just amazing tonight, either I'm missing something or people are seeing what they really, really want to see with a player. Because you've got comments like this from Brent Bellamy, who says they should have given him the chance after dominating the AHL like most teams do. Instead, he's been left to flounder for 2 years. Bad management. I don't agree with this, and it's quite simple. I don't agree with it because the training camp after he had this dominating season, he did not show by any means that he belonged on that NHL team. And so it's romantic to say, hey, he succeeded here, grab him, put him up, forget about it. But the reality of this, like we said, is you are competing for jobs, and it's hard to go into a camp and look and say, this guy has by far earned a spot on this team more than this guy, but we're going to give this guy a chance because he had a good, shot in the AHL last year. I don't think that's the reality of it. I think that's when you start to corrupt teams because people start realizing that their play doesn't necessarily translate to good things happening. Brad Lambert's got to earn it. This, what Brent Bellamy is saying, I don't agree with, because what Brent is saying is he thinks that a season 3 years ago meant he earned it and it was unquestionable. You got to earn your way into the NHL every single day. Guys like Mark Scheifele continue to do it every single day. Brad Lambert did not earn his spot in the NHL every single day following up that season, which is why I disagree with Brent Bellamy. Anyways, I hope we've covered, Brad Lambert all the way from the AHL, the up, down, all around to kind of show you where we're at with him. Hopefully we covered it the way Myers Drugs has the city of Winnipeg covered, because they deliver anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. So if you have prescription needs, if you have health food needs, supplemental needs, you know who to give a call. Call Myers and they can come to you. All right, Ken. Johnson Group got you covered. Play the game. What do you got?
Sneak Lou in.
Oh yeah,
first.
throw in Lou. Yeah.
For folks who have realty needs, you'd like to have Met, contact Lou Furlan of Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All right, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game before I got derailed by some of the comments happening in the chat room here.
Yeah, there weren't a ton of candidates, but Sean, in the first period, there was a diving stop by Dylan Samberg that I will give the got you covered play of the game, because I don't, quite frankly, remember many others.
We're gonna have to get back to this conversation. Try and bookmark it, and we'll get back to it. Dylan Samberg, he's still done a lot of things that I think are great, but we talked so much about the massive step forward he had last year. Does it not seem like this is a fairly obvious step back for him this year, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, he never, he was injured in a nothing burger play by Ryan Lomberg, and I think he spent most of the year trying to play catch up. I think there were blocks of the game, or of the games, where he looked like himself and had taken that next step, and there were other times where I think it was fine, but I mean, again, he's not a flashy player. But again, it wasn't as,
remind me of his injury,
as obvious. He got hit by Lomberg in the corner, broken wrist, I think. So
yeah. See, the thing I find strange is last year he took the shot off the boot, broke his foot, and came back and was immediately great again. And I just wonder why he would struggle so much coming off injury this year. Again, we've given Cole Perfetti kind of the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the high ankle sprain. And I had spoke with a couple former players about that and the difficulty of it. Brian Engblom is one of the people that I spoke to about that. He told me about how difficult it is to come back off of that high ankle sprain. I don't know that I'd put a broken wrist into that category, nor even a broken foot in that situation. So it seems strange to me. I get it. And I get that there's extenuating circumstances, and sometimes you get behind the play and you can't quite get ahead of it. But I do have to say, I think it's getting beyond the expiry date to say Dylan Samberg isn't back to a level that we expect from him because of the injury. At some point, I just think we just need to acknowledge Dylan Samberg reached a level last year that he hasn't been able to come. I've seen times where you see flashes of it, but the consistent shut down ridiculous nature of what he did. And I know we talked about it earlier in the year that if you slow down, the system gets a little, loose all over. And no one, I do remember saying earlier in the year, no one has been affected by that more than Dylan Samberg. If that's the case, it continues to be the case going forward. Anyways, I should talk about the Johnson Group. Hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is our Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. Hopefully that'll give a spark to Dylan Samberg. Hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I guess it's Hellebuck on Paling, but again, I thought it was a very solid effort by Hellebuck, but yeah, I think it was the glove save. I think it was on Paling is the one I liked.
All right, I'll go with that as well. Doesn't matter what I think, though, or what Ken thinks. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Derek Schmidt. Derek, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And Renny Jr. Sr. had her first shift today, Ken, at the keg.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that, but she
did not.
Got a job.
Took
done. Her orientation, going on to the next thing. So, what'll be great is if you and I can head down there sometime and just boss her around and be like just nightmare clients.
Hey, leave me out of this, buddy. You leave me out of this.
You are my partner. Where I go, you go. You better have my back on this.
I'll be going, but I won't be doing any of the harassment.
That monster. I'm the good
uncle here. No, I'm the good uncle here. Don't you be painting me with your brush.
Fine. All right. I think everyone knows I can play the bad guy here. Okay.
You don't.
That's it for us. Before we do get going, I did want to give a shout out to our main man, Tristan Rivers, and his 9 Lives show happening Friday, March 13th at Side Stage. That's at 700 Osborne Street, folks. Tickets $15 of all ages. Doors open at 8 p.m. They hit the stage at 8:30. Here is a link to buy tickets. I'm going to pop it in there. Ken, anything you need to say before we go?
Nope. Paperwork got settled. Logan Stanley made his debut for Buffalo today. I think got into a fun little tilt, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Buffalo's playing great, Sean. I mean, they're a fun team to watch. They're a fun team to watch right now.
You know what? I was going to say this because, I was thinking about this the other day, how fascinating it is that the Winnipeg Jets, who won the President's Trophy last year, and the Washington Capitals, who were the closest team to chasing them down for that, and then the Florida Panthers, who have fallen out of this, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, who won their division last year, and the New York Rangers, who were the President's Trophy winners 2 years ago. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. All these kind of different teams, that the kind of rotation that we're seeing, I have to say, I do find it fun and I find it fascinating. The Anaheim Ducks jumping up, the Minnesota Wild kind of turning into the juggernaut that they seem to be turning into. It's a fascinating year, but of all those teams that I talked about, I don't know that anyone is more fascinating than the Buffalo Sabres, who now find themselves atop of the Atlantic Division, with the Tampa Bay Lightning cratering the way that they've been cratering, 2 points out of leading the Eastern Conference entirely. And we had talked about how the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, and the Minnesota Wild were a class above everybody else. I mean, at 86 points, the Buffalo Sabres are 1 point back of the Minnesota Wild, and think of the points they spotted them at the beginning of the year.
They were last in the East, Sean.
Yes, yeah. This is
at one point.
Honestly, this is going to be fascinating in the East, because it's either going to be the year that the Carolina Hurricanes go to the Cup final because the deck has been cleared for them, or Tampa Bay Lightning are going to wake up and reassume the throne that they sat on for years. And, maybe it's now another Stanley Cup going to go to Florida, and, you and I will find our ways down there. Or there's going to be some really interesting stuff here. Like it's going to be just a total wild card, like the Buffalo Sabres or the Canadians or the Islanders or the Penguins, the Red Wings getting back to the playoffs for the first time in a while, the Boston Bruins going from being a top of the league team, cratering, falling out of the playoffs and getting back, or what looks like is very, very possible here is the Columbus Blue Jackets sneaking back. And we say everything we want to say about the Jets. Ottawa is getting a little bit closer, although they're 5 points out still. That's a tough climb, although they've got a game in hand. Columbus has been playing the way that they've been playing as of late is absolutely astounding. And that's good. Hey, that's going to be a big game, the Jets and Columbus. Regardless, the East is fascinating because it sure seems like we could have like one of those. Remember all those years, Ken, there was that team, hey, perfect example, 96. It's like the Colorado Avalanche, who we always knew were going to be a good team when they came from Quebec, are in the Stanley Cup final against the Florida Panthers in 1996. That's crazy, right? And nothing kind of stood out more than when you'd play NHL 96 or 97, and it would always start with the two Stanley Cup winning teams, and you'd go back and dust off one of your old games. And, hey, let's play some NHL 94 right now, and it would be like the the Minnesota North Stars were in the final against the Pittsburgh Penguins. What the heck happened that year, right? Anyways, it could very well be one of those years where it's like, and it always seemed like it was a juggernaut on one side and just like, how the heck did those guys even make the playoffs that year on the other side? This could be the year one of those things happened. Regardless, we'll see if the Winnipeg Jets can be one of those teams to sneak their way back in there. But if you do appreciate the conversations we had in this space today and we continue to have in this space, we implore you to appreciate the contribution by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnson Group, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you for checking in with us. We will do this all over again on Thursday when the Jets take on the New York Rangers, who had been like a pretty sad sack team for a while and seemed to have turned things around a little bit here as of late. They're a little feistier anyway, so it should be a good game. We'll talk all about it. Talk to you later, folks. Bye-bye.